Today, we're tackling a massive, and I mean massive, question. What happens to our sense of purpose when our paychecks just disappear? No, seriously, I want you to really think about this for a second. If all your basic needs were covered, what would you do all day? This isn't some sci-fi fantasy anymore. With how fast AI is moving, it's a question we're all being forced to think about right now. Okay, so the whole premise here is built on something we're already seeing happen. AI isn't really eliminating jobs as a whole, not yet anyway. What it's doing, and doing it at an incredible speed, is taking over specific tasks. And what does that mean? It means we're seeing this massive jump in productivity that's, well, it's becoming decoupled from a person needing to clock in for 8 hours a day. So, how might this all play out? Well, the source material gives us this really fascinating three-phase roadmap. We're going to look at what's called the anxious present, then this ownership divide, and then a vision for a whole new economy. And the whole time, we'll keep coming back to that central question: what's really going to matter? Okay, let's get into the framework itself. And just to be clear, this isn't about predicting the future with 100% certainty. Think of it more as a plausible roadmap for how our world could be completely transformed. This table you're seeing, this is basically our guide for the next few minutes. It lays out this huge societal shift in three distinct phases. And for each one, I want you to look at a few key things: what's actually happening, the main pressure everyone's going to feel, and, the most important thing to focus on to get through it. And this quote, this really just hits the nail on the head. I mean, think about it. For literally all of human history, our lives have revolved around one single problem. How do we survive? How do we get enough to live? So what happens when technology pretty much solves that for us? We're left with a much, much bigger question, aren't we?
So let's jump into phase one. It's called the anxious present, and yeah, you guessed it. The argument is that this is where we are right now.
I mean, look at this. Doesn't this sound familiar? Tasks are getting automated left and right. People are seriously talking about things like universal basic income. Everything just feels kind of unsettled, right? That dominant pressure, anxiety, and denial, that's the mood. But here's the absolute key takeaway. This isn't just a temporary downturn or another business cycle. The argument is that this is a deep, permanent, structural change. And if you look around, the signs are literally everywhere. AI is squeezing wages. You hear politicians debating UBI. Governments are trying to patch up the system with these temporary safety nets. But underneath all that noise is this massive looming question that nobody's really answered yet. Who's going to own the AI that's creating all this value? And that question, the one about ownership, it doesn't just fade away. According to this framework, it actually becomes the central fight of the next stage, phase two, the ownership divide. Okay, so in this phase, the productivity from AI just explodes. It gets so big that society starts to really fracture. A massive political battle kicks off between two very different groups. And for you, as an individual, the most important thing becomes crystal clear. You've got to find a way to get a stake in all this new wealth before all the dividends go to somebody else. And this slide lays out those two sides perfectly. You've got your ownership coalitions on one side. These are the folks who own the AI, the infrastructure, all the valuable assets. And they just keep pulling further and further ahead. Then, on the other side, you have the redistribution coalitions. These are people who depend on things like UBI. And the source here calls it a Band-Aid solution, right? People are getting fed, sure, but they're not actually empowered because they don't own any piece of the machine that's creating the wealth. So, where does this great divide lead? Well, this conflict, this tension, it eventually forces society into the final and by far the most radical phase, the birth of a totally new kind of economy. And here, everything changes. The basic rules of how society works, they get completely rewritten. The whole idea of working to survive is just gone. What organizes our lives isn't a paycheck anymore. It's the search for who we are and what we find meaningful. The most important skill isn't just compliance, showing up and doing what you're told. It's contribution, finding a way to do something that actually matters. Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. We're talking about a world where basic needs, food, a place to live, energy, learning, all become so ridiculously cheap to produce with automation that they're just available. The daily grind to earn a living is just over. So you might be wondering, if money isn't the main goal anymore, what is? What's the new status symbol? Well, the source has a name for it: reputation capital. And you can think of it like a new kind of currency. But it's not based on what you can buy. It's based on what you contribute. It becomes the way people see your talent, your creativity, how much they can trust you. And this isn't some fuzzy, abstract idea. It's something that could be built on real, measurable things. Stuff we can already see today, like contributing code to an open source project, or solving a problem in your local community, creating art, teaching someone a skill, caring for a relative, or making a scientific discovery. All of these are real, verifiable contributions that would build up your reputation capital. And this quote, employment optional does not equal meaning optional. This might be the most important point of this whole final phase. Just because you don't have to work for a paycheck doesn't mean our need for purpose just vanishes. No way. In fact, it probably becomes the most important thing. So what does that search for purpose even look like? The source breaks it down into what it calls a purpose stack. It's pretty cool. It all starts with identity, knowing who you are. Then you ground that identity in a community. You show who you are through your contribution, and you get better at it. You deepen it by seeking mastery in the things you're actually passionate about. All right, so we just took a trip, decades into a potential future? Let's bring it all back. What does this actually mean for us right now? Well, what you need to focus on changes depending on the phase. Right now in phase 1, the biggest thing is just to wrap your head around the idea that this change is real and it's not going away. Then in phase 2, the game becomes all about getting some kind of ownership stake in these new systems. And finally, in phase 3, it's all about setting yourself up to make a contribution, not just to follow orders. And this leads to such a profound shift in what we value. In a world where we have plenty of stuff, the things that become truly scarce, truly valuable, they're not physical anymore. They're human. Things like our limited attention, our desire for novelty, for new experiences, and that fundamental search for meaning. That's the new wealth. And this chart really just sums the whole journey up, doesn't it? We're seeing a transition from a world where labor is the main organizing force to a world where identity and meaning take over. It's a total rewrite of what it even means to be a valuable member of society. So let's end on this final thought. The source is really clear that these phases don't happen for everyone at the exact same time. It's not a neat, clean timeline. Different people, different jobs, different parts of the world, they're all moving through this at their own pace. So the real question isn't which phase is the world in, the question is which phase are you in?